David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today, I have another new pen for you from Leonardo. I realized that I have reviewed a large number of Leonardo pens, but they happen to be a company which comes out with a large number of pens. And I'm only reviewing a fraction of their total releases. They work with a number of retailers for retailer exclusives, and it's one of those retailer exclusives that I have for you today. I feel these retailer exclusives are interesting to get a closer look at, mainly because they are mostly limited editions, and once they have been sold, they will most likely be gone forever. If there's a retailer exclusive that catches your eye, it's one of those things that more often than not, you need to jump on it before they're sold out. That's not always the case, but many times it is. When I'm working with a retailer to review one of their exclusives, I often coordinate the posting of the review with the release date of the pen, which is why I have this pen for you today. And my very next review coming up in a couple of days is also of a Leonardo retailer exclusive. Different pen, different retailer, plenty to talk about. I've never done that before, I don't believe, review the same brand on consecutive reviews. I typically try to space things out a little bit like that, but this is just how the timing worked out for these two reviews, and I feel that they're both well worth taking a closer look at. Okay, let's get to the pen at hand, which is available only through the Korean retailer Limited Pens Korea. They've been working with a number of manufacturers, mainly Leonardo and Montegrappa, to produce a number of very unique and eye-catching limited edition models. What I have for you today is the Leonardo Momento Magico White Salt. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this new pen, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Since this is a Magico model, I will also have a little magic trick for you as well, but that will need to wait until the writing sample. Thanks go out to Limited Pens Korea for providing this pen for review. And this is what it looks like. It has a striking white resin and is available in either silver trim or rose gold plated trim. I personally tend to lean towards silver trim on my pens, but I feel that the rose gold works well here as well. Just about any color is going to work well with this white. In regard to the resin for this model, it's a very nice creamy pearlescent white with lots of variation in the material. There are some portions like this here where there is more swirling and agitation, and then there's other areas where the coloration transitions are a bit smoother. I thought this part here almost looked like white stone. Every angle of this pen gives you a bit of a different look to this material, which has an abundance of pearlescence. Let's take a look at the cap. The top has Leonardo's traditional rounded cone. This transitions into the tapered wheeled clip. I wish more pens had wheeled clips. I think they're kind of fun. The cap angles up at a fairly consistent angle. Close to the end, on the side opposite of the clip, it is engraved with Leonardo and the number of this pen. It's a little tough to see here on this white material. I personally can't see it with my naked eye. I have to have the light hit it just right in order to make it out. Below that, we have the band. I like the design of this band where you can see the underlying material through the slots in the band. This white resin really shows well through the slots. After the band, there is a stair-step transition down to the barrel. The barrel is slightly convex, meaning that it's a little thinner and then it angles up to its thickest portion about here, and then it tapers back down toward the end, where there is a silver band signifying the beginning of the piston knob, and the end of that knob, just like the top of the cap, comes to a rounded point. The cap twists off at a single rotation, and underneath we have a Jowo No. 6 stainless steel nib. I mentioned the different trims earlier. The rose gold version will have a rose gold plated nib, and this silver trim version has a matching colored nib. This pen is available in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, a stub, as well as Jowo's flex nib, which Leonardo calls their elastic nib, which is what I have here on this pen. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section of the Magico begins with a flare. It has a more traditionally shaped section than the standard Momento Zero, which has more of a stair-step design. It's a bit on the short side and quickly transitions into the threads, the ink window, and the remainder of the barrel. This white salt model has the more updated design, similar to the emerald model I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. This window is about half of the size of the original one, and this one also has two trim-colored rings, one on either side. This ink window is not visible when the pen is capped, while the larger window on the older model was. I do care for this redesign. I like the looks of having the rings on either side of the barrel, and it's plenty large enough to see your ink situation. While the section isn't overly long, I do find my grip spills over onto the resin threads, but they're not sharp or uncomfortable at all. And I find the pen plenty long enough to use unposted. The cap does post, and it does post securely. It's really light enough that I don't find it backweights or throws off the balance of the pen at all. If you're a fan of posting your cap, then this pen does that nicely. With a piston knob at an ink window, you would correctly assume that this pen is a piston filler. I find the piston mechanism to work smoothly, and the pen has a decent ink capacity. For cleaning, this nib unit does unscrew. While you can pick up a tool for Leonardo pens which could be used to disassemble the piston, I don't believe Limited Pens Korea actually carries that item. You would need to pick that up elsewhere. Personally, while the tool works nicely, I haven't had the need to use it yet on any of the Leonardo piston fillers in my collection. I find that removing the nib unit will provide access enough to clean out the ink out of the pen. Speaking of ink, one of the neat things about this white is that I feel that just about any color is going to look good coming out of this pen. There's some pens in my collection where I feel like only one or two colors really feel right for the pen, but I think the options are basically unlimited for this pen. I need to make up my mind what ink to use for the writing sample. I was thinking maybe a red or a purple, so stay tuned to see which one I choose. The Leonardo Momento Magico White Salt is only available through the Limited Pens Korea website and sells for $225. I feel that that's a very reasonable price for what you receive with this pen. The standard pen in the Magico lineup sells for around $180, so a bit of a premium for a limited edition model is to be expected. On top of that, for this pen through Limited Pens Korea, shipping is free, so that's a nice added bonus. I like the overall design of the Magico. I feel the recent updates to the design were for the positive, and if you don't have a Magico in your collection, then the white salt version is something well worth checking out on the Limited Pens Korea site. I'll put a link to their site in the notes below. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, a writing sample, and that quick trick. Okay, I promised I'd show a quick magic trick before we got started. I have a book of matches here, and you can see here that there's a little hole, and I have a toothpick, and you can see here that I am putting this toothpick through the hole. You can see that's pretty fair right there, right? It's going in there. But sometimes looks can be deceiving, and sometimes your eyes can trick you, because if I take this toothpick out, you will see that inside this box, there is a solid piece of metal. So here we go with some size comparisons for the Leonardo Momento Magico White Salt. In regard to another one of the Limited Pens Korea offerings, this was a Leonardo Momento Zero Grande, and this was the Ocean Wave. Then here is another version of a Momento Zero Grande, and this is in the Brooks Primary Manipulation. And then here's another Leonardo, which is the Fiore Grande. And in regard to some non-Leonardo pens, here it is with a Visconti Homo Sapiens. And here it is with a Faber-Castell Lume. And then finally, here it is with a Lamy All-Star. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with that All-Star, and here it is with the Momento Zero Grande Ocean Wave, and here it is with the Visconti Homo Sapien. Here we go with the writing sample for the Leonardo Momento Magico White Salt. And this is we'll call it FE for fine elastic. And the ink that I decided to go with, since this is a pen from a Korean retailer, I thought it would be appropriate to go with a Korean ink, which is 3 Oysters, Yume. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice kind of a darker maroonish red. As compared to something like the Monteverdi Strawberry Shortcake, which is a little bit more on the vibrant side. And then another one of my favorite reds is the Birmingham Pen Fred Rogers Cardigan Red. This is what the ink bottle looks like. 3 Oysters has a lot of nice inks. If you don't have any of those in your collection, then they're worth checking out. Okay, here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I find this elastic nib to be very nice. It's not overly scratchy, which some of these elastic nibs are. That you can get a decent amount of line variation out of here. The ink flow is very decent on this pen in regard to reverse writing. It's slightly scratchy, but it gets the job done. And in regard to some fast writing, the nib keeps up just fine. So there we have the Momento Magico White Salt. Let me give you another closer look at that material. I think it looks really interesting. And it does have a look of some crystallized salt there. So if you don't have a Magico in your collection, then this is worth checking out on the Limited Pens Korea site. I'll put a link to it in the notes below. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.